from the St. Francis Yacht Club in San Francisco, this is the Wednesday Yachting
Isn't that
Luncheon,
exciting?
hosted by
Is my too
Ron
loud?
Young.
Oh, I usually hold my fingers up. Welcome to the Wednesday Yachting Luncheon. I am so thrilled we are back here live in the grill room with our favorite view and a wonderful speaker today. I am so thrilled to introduce you to Cyril Derreumaux, who is, among other things, he holds one Guinness Book of World Records, one record, and another one is pending. So this is very exciting. Cyril is interesting. He's French. He speaks 6 languages and counting. He's now learning Hawaiian. And he is a citizen of the world. He's French, but he lives right here in the Bay Area. And he is a kayaker. He's a world adventurer. He's a citizen of the world. And he's very interesting. I'm just thrilled we're able to talk to him today. He actually took a kayak. He's the first person to go from California over to the state of Hawaii, solo powered in his kayak. He was the only thing that powered it. And it was quite a tale, and he's got a lot more tales to tell us too. Cyril actually went to Oxford. He has a degree in business. He also is managing Sail Nautique here in the Bay Area, teaching people how to sail. He has many interests. He's working on a book and a documentary. What doesn't this man do? Well, how about talking a Wednesday Yachting Luncheon? May I introduce to you Cyril Derreumaux.
Thank you, Kathy. Hi, everyone. The crowd is here. The best decor. Thanks for having me. I'm super happy to be here because I'm going to talk to you about something that was passionate in my heart. It took me 4 years to make happen, and I want to tell you all the details. So here's the story. But before I go, let me go back to like the biggest endeavors that man has done. If you think about the biggest one, climbing the Everest, 11,000 people have done that. Swimming the English Channel, 4,000 people have done that. Going into space, 622 people have done that. Then walking on the moon, 12 people have done that. How about crossing a kayak? There's been 4 people, and I'm one of the 4. So today the idea is telling you of how I got into my head that I could do that. Having started kayaking when I was 32, when I moved here, 10 years later, I started to have the idea of thinking it was possible. So, but I'm sure you have many questions, like, why would you want to do this? We've known people who wanted to do sailing, but why would you leave comfort and go into that pitching ocean and danger and potential bad weather? Each dot is 1 day, so it was 91 days to go from Monterey to Hawaii. But why would you want to do that? This boat is so small. Like, literally, it's like a coffin, right? I can't walk. What I wanted to do is to do this adventure 3 ways. Solo, so I'm alone in the boat. Unsupported, there's no boat following me from the moment I take off from the pier. And fully human powered, so no sail, no engine, just the human strength. But what about the wildlife? What happens if you fall in the water, if you get separated from the boat? What happens if you see container ship? How do you call them? All this I had to learn and decide what gear I wanted to have in this tiny little cabin. How do I learn about navigation at sea, survival, VHF? How do I learn about, making water and changing the electronics on my boat if something breaks? I had 2 solar panels, lithium-ion batteries. How do I learn about all this? How about training physically? How do you do? I'm going to be kayaking for 10 to 12 hours a day. How do you train so that you don't get injured? What kind of training do you do? All these questions, I had to figure them out. Like I said, there were only 3 people before me that had done that. So there's no blueprint. And I was on the water for 91 days. Think about all the things you do in 91 days. That's 3 months. All the places you go, the people you see, things you talk about. Well, I missed all of that. I was just kayaking. I missed a lot, but what did I learn in return? Before I start, I'm going to show you this 2-minute video to kind of give you the feel for it.
This is what I want. It's one of the best pleasures of the day. Water a bit. I'm so tired.
Wow, very strong emotions. So where did it start? All this whole journey. It started with dreaming, feeling the inner fire, feeling the inspiration. And for me, it started with reading this book called The Pacific Alone by Ed Gillette. Ed Gillette is an American. He left from Monterey with this kayak. He took a double kayak in 1987. Left from Monterey, and he had no GPS, so he navigated with a sextant, no sat phone. He was completely silent at sea. He left, and at night he would sleep into his cockpit and put a top over himself. And he crossed. People thought he was dead because he was not communicating at all. And 67 days, and I read this book. I said, this guy's amazing. And I was like, what? And he did it with a kite, so he used the wind at some point. And I said, I think with the knowledge, so 6 years ago, I crossed on a rowing boat from here to Hawaii in 39 days. So we got the Guinness record for the fastest crossing in a 4-man team. And I said, if I take the knowledge that I had from my first crossing, put all the equipment, the right gear, I think I can do it in a kayak. It's been so seldom done. I'd like to be the first one who does a human-powered crossing from here to Hawaii. So I got together on a table with friends and started to make some drawings and what would be the best boat. I wanted to be super safe, self-rightening. I would be sustainable, so I needed to be able to make water, right? So I needed solar panels, lithium-ion batteries, and water makers to create my own water. And then I would have freeze-dried foods, and how much? 4,000 calories a day. And I started to dream, and what I did is I need to call the people that have done it before. So there's 3 people I said. The first one is the bottom one. He's a Polish guy. He crossed the Atlantic 3 times. His name is Alexander Doba. And he doesn't speak English, so I didn't speak to him. But I spoke to the top right, his name is Scott Donaldson. Scott crossed the Tasman Sea from Australia to New Zealand. It took him 3 trials. The first time he had to give up after a week, the second one after 70 days, and the third one he finally made it. And I got to speak to him at length. And the other one is Peter Bray, the top left. He crossed the North Atlantic from Canada to Ireland in 76 days. And I really liked his boat because I liked the fact that there was a cabin in the back, and it would protect me from the trade winds coming from the back and also from the sea. So I talked to all of them, and Peter Bray said, "You got to talk to Rob Filoy, is this British guy. He did this boat." So I called Rob, and I said, "Rob, will you build me a kayak?" He said, "Cyril, that was in 2001. It's 20 years ago. I'm retired. I don't have a shop. I can't do it." So I guess I must have been very motivated and enthusiastic enough that he would say, "Okay, I'm going to come out of retirement. I'll make my last boat for you." So then the project was on. I started to do those drawings, and then once I had that, I was more serious. It was not I want to do a kayak. I had a website. I had a PowerPoint presentation. I could go and see sponsors. I could find, logistics. I could learn about the equipment that I could do inside. But I knew I needed to train physically because paddling 12 hours a day, how do you train your body? And I'm not a big, strong physical guy, but I knew that it was not going to be about the muscle mass, but more about the joints and the tendons. This is what, repetitive motion could be hurting after a while. So I trained specifically. I went to this company in Mill Valley, and they said, "Okay, well, let's do a VO2 max." So I went on this bike, and you do, efforts, and they look at your VO2 consumption and also the lactic acid. So they take a drop of blood from your earlobe every minute, and then they look at how my body is recycling the lactic acid. And in the end of the training, he said, "Cyril, you're not very fit. You're not a marathoner, and you're not a sprinter. So you got to follow a different kind of training." And his training was a lot of hours at 140 beat per minute. So it's a heart rate that is just before exhaustion. But if I could do that for many hours, then I could do a 90 beat per minute for all day. So I did a lot of cycling, biking, running, swimming, just about anything. But I had to do 2 hours, 3 hours a day. But the thing I knew too is I needed to work on my mental. I had done long races. I had crossed the ocean, but crossing the ocean with a 4-man crew is different than being completely alone. There's the self-awareness that you need to have where you're physically, mentally, emotionally. So I needed to do everything, and I'm a beginner's mind. What can I do? So I asked everybody. I have a friend on the bottom left. His name is Carter. He's got several Guinness records for kayaking, and I asked him, "What if you had to do that adventure? How would you do it?" And I asked everybody around who would listen to my crazy story. But what I did too, on the top left, it's actually on the Schoonamaker Beach over there in South Toledo. There's this guy, and his name is Wim Hof. He talks about cold water soaking, where you go in cold water, you stay there. It doesn't matter if it hurts, you breathe through it, and you're mental, you calm your mind, and you make it through. And every day it'll be longer and longer. So I tried that. I tried Zazen meditation, where I would go to the Buddhist center and learn how to sit and just sit for hours at a time, not moving. In fact, that was good training because on my boat, I couldn't pretty much get up. I didn't walk for 3 months. So just being able to sit and stay with my mind was important. But I also went to see Yacht. Yacht is a guru in India, and we were just on a retreat doing 1 week of yoga, and I met him. He's from the Osho family, and he said, "Cyril, you should look into hypnosis." Hypnosis could be really great because you're going to work on your unconscious side of your brain. And he says, "I want you to come up with 20 sentences that you want to believe at your core. And those are the depths. I don't want to have any depths ever when I'm on the water." And so I came up with these 20 sentences, which is, "You are doing it. You are not alone. Your instincts are powerful. You are ready and well prepared," and on and on. And in the end, it was, "You are patient. You never quit. You made it to Hawaii." So he put me under hypnosis. You lay down and you kind of almost sleep, and he reads it to you for like an hour. And he recorded that. He said, "You get to listen to that as often as you can for the next months before departure." And the reason I think, you don't know if it works, but I couldn't doubt that I was alone. I was obviously alone on the boat, but there was a crowd following me. So every time I was down, I could think, I'm not alone. And that's core belief that that's what you want to feel. But also, I knew the confinement of that cabin was going to be a hard one. It's so tiny. I mean, it's like, I touch here, I touch on the side, I touch on this side, and I can't move. And if it's on rough water, I'm attached here on the chest and on the hips. So what I did is my boat was getting built in England. So I went to a hardware store and I bought a bunch of wood. I took the map of my boat and I reproduced exactly the cabin in my backyard. So I'm 42 years old and there I go and spend the whole afternoon in that box. Like my fiance is like, what are you doing? You're 42? Babe, I'm working. And I had actually my computer, the Wi-Fi was close enough that I could work all afternoon. I was so hot in there, I was sweating. I'm training. Then I sleep in there, and again, my fiance would say, "Cyril, what are you doing, babe?" I'm training. And then what I'd do is I'd put that box and paint, solo kayak to Hawaii, my new website, and I'd drive around and I'd show it to anybody who wanted to. Like, go in there. That's my cabin. It's not here yet, but it's gonna happen. So, and also, I knew I needed to create a team. So I convinced, and this is the power of passion, because a real leader is somebody who like, his passion is like a virus. I go to talk to an electrician, a marine electrician. I said, look, you need to teach me. I don't know. Like, if my solar panels get disconnected, it doesn't work. How do I connect my Garmin directly to the solar panels? How do I do that? He taught me this. And I need to have a medical team as well. What happens if day 45, 46, I cut myself? I don't want to be, I have a problem with diarrhea or vomiting or anything, like something's wrong medically. I need to have a team. I need to have social media so I can share it with everybody. They could follow me. I needed a team for everything. But in the meantime, it's a lot of problem solving because the boat has never been done before. It's much smaller than a kayak. So whatever I knew from the kayak, I couldn't be translated with a rowing boat. But the boat is being built, and it self-rightens. These are pictures that they sent me showing that they actually can't make it tip. There's no way. They're trying with all their weight, and the boat is always coming back. So that's what I wanted. I wanted to go on an adventure and be safe. I didn't want to be risking my life at all. Although a lot of people could think, it's ridiculous, it's too risky. To me, the adventure was all about weighing the risk and having a plan for it. The biggest risk is to be separated from the boat. I do something stupid, fall out of the water, I could drift faster than I can swim. So I was attached with a tether. It didn't matter if it was flat water, I would have that. And then I had planned A, B, and C. I had a water maker. If that one breaks, I have a plan B, a handheld water maker. And then I had a third one, which is going back to the first one, removing the engine and putting a lever so I could turn that one into a manual one. Same for the plotter. I had a handheld GPS. Same for the sat phone. I had a handheld Garmin, InReach. I had a AIS, automatic identification system, so container ship would see me and I could see them. I had a VHF on board and I had a handheld one. I did the navigation and survival at sea. I was planning for 4 years for this. Also to prove everybody wrong that it was actually, if I plan well, I can do anything. So the first year, unfortunately, the boat is stuck in England because that's COVID. That's March 2020. They can't send it to me. So I had been training for 2 years, and there the boat is stuck in England. So I have to postpone it 1 more year. But finally, in September, it arrives here in Sausalito at Seatrek. And the best thing with this is I could start training. So I had to find an inflatable life raft, but all the ones I had for boating were too big, so I had to find one in the aircraft. And I do training. It's good to have it on board, but if you don't know how to use it. So I inflated it, I went on board, and I started to do that. But here I am in the bay. I was actually out of Yellow Bluff right there training. And the best training is actually to be on the boat. Have a feeling for how heavy the boat is. It was going to be 800 pounds, so it's quite heavy for a kayak. And I added some water to feel how heavy it would be and train my muscle for that. And this is right under the Golden Gate. My photographer was there, and I say, wow, there's spouts. Tom, get ready. I'm going to chase that whale. And it just came out next to me. And that was fabulous. That taught me, okay, that's a good omen. I'm ready to go. So there I go. That's June 2021, 2 years ago. I'm here. A friend who's a diver over there, Diver Dave, and I was on his dock and I was starting to load, and I couldn't fit all the food. So much food. 240 pounds of food, mostly freeze-dried meals because it has to be light. And all I do is rehydrate, but I need 4,000 calories a day for what I thought was going to be 70 days. I added 10 days of margin to be sure, so I had 80 days of 4,000 calories. It took me all day to make it fit, but in the end I had to sleep on some of the food Because more than the food, I had my gear, I had my repair kit. What if, anything happens, I need to be able to repair it. So there I go. This time, I actually left from Horseshoe Cove. That was a 5 a.m. takeoff. The tide was ebbing really strong. The wind were clear for 3 days, and that's one of the big problems here is to leave the coast, right? The currents are going to bring me back. So if I do enough mileage the first 3 days, I'm off the coast. Then the bad weather can arrive, and I'll still be safe. And I take off, beautiful day, a lot of people following, there's TVs and everything. It's like, wow, this is great, and I felt like I made it. And usually in these endeavors, the hardest is actually just to be at the start line. And finally, I made room in my life because I need to pause everything. My work, my emails, I wrote my will, what happened, like anything that could happen, I had to plan for it. So I take off, and you can see the Faroe Islands. I did 32 miles the first day. I did great. There's a few whales following me, a lot of container ship. But finally, the first day was great. The next 2 days were great. And then my weather router in France, who was going to give me my information every day about the next 3 days, said, Cyril, you're going to have to be patient because there's going to be bad weather coming. And in fact, it was going to last for a week. And it was not planned. We knew that it was going to be 2-3 days, but not a week. And the weather goes from bad to worse. The third day, so my speed is 2.5 knots. I'm very slow. So as soon as I have like over 25, 30 knots of wind, I can't paddle. So I go in the cabin, put the sea anchor out, and it's 50 feet of line, and then the big parachute power anchor, and I just wait it out. So for 3 days I'm stuck in the cabin. I'm moving. I'm seasick. I have to wake up every hour to look at container ships, because on the plotter I can only detect the boats up to 20 miles. I'm sure you're familiar with that already. So what I would do, because they go to 15 to 20 knots, then I'd look at the radius. Okay, there's no boat. I can sleep for an hour. Wake up an hour later. Look, okay, there's a boat coming. I'm going to be clear. I can sleep another hour. So, but the weather is getting bad and bad. I'm still feeling okay, but after 3 days, something happened that my boat goes parallel to the waves, and I get pounded and pounded, and then I don't know what happened. So I go out and I look. It's already 10 p.m. So I have my flashlight, and I don't see very well, but I can see that something's wrong with my sea anchor, and I figure out that the retrieving line, that is floating line you pull on to retrieve and collapse the parachute and bring it back, got stuck in my rudder a few times. So that collapsed the parachute. Now it's not doing its work, and so I go back inside, and there's water coming in my cabin, and that's stressful because mentally that's my cocoon. Having it wet, it's only like a gallon of water, but everything's wet. So I close it back, and I'm a bit stressed, and I tried to contact my land support and said, I don't know, okay, what's the plan? I don't want to do anything stupid right away, but there's 3 solutions. One, I jump in the water, I'm attached with a tether, I swim back, and I try to remove the knot. But I don't want to do that because the wind, that was like 10 to 15 feet waves. If there's a big wave that hits my boat, hits my head, I'm passed out, I'm dead. So safety first, I'm not doing this. Second is wait it out. I have to wait another 3 hours. Okay, 3 days, sorry. And at that point, like I'm banged, like I can hear the wave like, bow, so stressful. I can't sleep. I can't eat. I can't poop. I cannot do anything. What do I do? Like, can I bear this for 3 more days? And finally, the third solution was actually call the Coast Guards. And I felt like I had gone through a lot, and I didn't feel like it was a good way to start a trip like this. It's going to be 70 days. So I go for safety, and I call the Coast Guards. Got all the protocols nailed down, so I called the VHF. They come with a helicopter, and they pick me up. They send a diver down, and the diver is amazing. He comes to the boat, and says, okay, Cyril, we're going to bring you home. And he leaves the boat drifting, obviously, but picks me up, go back to the container, and then we're in SFO. And I'm like, what just happened? My boat is still drifting. What do I do? I've been training for like 3 years. And then all the naysayers online are that, the ones that are connecting and commenting from their sofa are like, obviously you're not going to do that. Look at your boat. Everybody tried. Nobody did it. Why do you think you could have done it? So you close that door. I don't want to hear any naysayers. What do I do? Okay, so what I do is I actually call the people that I trust. And on top left is my land support, Dave, and we try to figure out what went wrong. And on the bottom is Scott Donaldson. Scott Donaldson is a kayaker who crossed the Tasman Sea. He said, Cyril, okay, first thing is you actually confronted reality. You thought you were prepared, and There's nothing you could have done other than that, than confronting reality. And it's true. You can learn everything you want. Listen to all the podcasts. Talk to the people. You can read all the books. Even cross an ocean in a rowing boat. Until you have your ass in a boat on a storm, you don't know what it is. So look at it as an experience and move on. And then he said, Cyril, so do you think you were prepared? I said, yeah, I was prepared. The first day I did great. Physically, I felt strong. Yeah, but you were rescued, so do you think you were prepared? See, yeah, rescued, but for 3 days I was actually not even afraid in my boat. It was rocking around, and I got rescued. Once I rescued, I had everything, like the survival suit, the PFD, the flare, the probe, the VHF, communication. Yeah, but you were rescued, so were you prepared? I said, okay, fuck, I wasn't prepared. He pushed me to the point where he said, Cyril, you were not prepared. Kind of like an addict that has to first recognize that he is in order to get better. I had to recognize that his point of view was right, that I wasn't prepared. I could have done more. So now it's all about learning. What do I do more? So first I have to go get my boat. So I finally convinced a towboat in Santa Cruz. It's 70 miles offshore. And I go get it. And Valentine, my kayak, I named her per my sister, was there, happy. So what I realized is, if I had passed out for 3 days, like, I would have been fine. I would not have been dead. Like, the boat is fine. The boat is insubmersible. So I need to build my trust to that rubber ducky of a boat that will never sink. So everything was in my mind. That's it. That's what he wanted to say. Is like, mentally, I had to bring my game so much higher than what I would, And then I started to say, okay, I gotta go into much more hard workouts. And the problem here is, every time there was bad weather, like 20, 25 knots, going at the gate is what I need to do, going past Point Bonita, the potato patch and all that. But the problem is that the current is so strong. With my boat, I have no maneuverability. So it was always scary to get there and not being able to come back. Or then, have to call the Coast Guard again once I'm on shore in Pacifica? I didn't want to do that. So my decision was to go actually to Santa Cruz. In Santa Cruz, there was going to be a week of bad weather, 25, 30 knots. But it picks up at noon, more or less. So what I'd do, I'd take off from Santa Cruz, go towards Davenport, north, and kayak against the wind as hard as I could. And then, the white water would start to wash over my boat. And when I was going under half a knot, then I'd turn around and go downwind for 2-3 hours and back to Santa Cruz, sleep in the boat. So my question was, is this what I want to do? Going to increase my chance of success to get to Hawaii? So then suddenly that was my filter. Like, do I want to talk to the press? No, that's not going to help me. But before, it's what I had to do. I had to be some kind of famous so that people, would click on likes and stuff so that, sponsors would help me financially. And then it was like, I don't care. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do social media. I'm going to not start from the Golden Gate, because I've been filming everything. I wanted to do a documentary on Netflix or whatever. And the guy said, no, you have to start from the Golden Gate. It's mythical. No, this time I'm going to start under the radar. I don't want to press. And I decided to start from Monterey. So nobody knew but my close team. And I left from Monterey Harbor one day, loaded again with all the food. I was 1 year later. So what I did do for 1 year, I'm a manager. I speak 6 languages. Who's going to hire me knowing that I was going to go on the water for another 3 months in 7 months? So I actually got odd jobs. I was diver with Diver Dave. I would go under boats and scrape algae. And again, my fiance says, Cyril, you got a master's degree in what are you doing scraping algae? Babe, this is what I want to do. I need to be acquainted with water, being cold, being wet. That's what I need to do. And I don't care about the money. This is the activity that allows me to keep training, that keep working on my boat, improving the boat, and in 7 months, I'll be back on the water. So there I go. That was last year, June 2022. I take off this time. The weather was good for 5 days. And there I go again with seasickness. I vomit, and then I make sure I drink, and I force myself to eat. And I'm alone, but I'm feeling good. And this time, I'm not going to quit. Like, I'm strong. Until the boat sinks, I'm not going to call for support. And like, my game is so much higher mentally. But there's so many container ships. Look at this. There's 4 boats, and that's about 400 miles off of LA. So many boats that are going across. So I have to wake up every hour. The other thing that is kind of bothering is that I do 20 miles a day. nautical miles kayaking, but I stop. The boat drifts. I drift 5 miles back to shore. And every day it's like this. It's like a shark tooth, like 20 miles, losing 5, 20 miles, losing 6, 30 miles. And again and again. And I'm slower than anticipated. I thought I was going to be faster, but what happens is things go wrong. Like my batteries don't charge very well because it's very foggy. I still use the battery power for my water maker. My steering lines are not happening. So I'm like, do I go to Los Angeles? And in a week I'll be there. But then I think I got to be all in. And that's what I call my second departure, where I said, okay, there's 400 miles right there towards the shore, or there's 2,000 towards Hawaii. And to 400 miles, it's where the limit where the Coast Guard are going to come and get you. That's it. After that, so it's like, okay, I'm just doing this. I don't want to be the guy that tried to kayak. I want to be the one, like, go through with it, and I want to be there. So then it started to be, like, amazing. It really was like the commitment that I had. It was the biggest commitment in my life, because I was actually okay with failing and not making it. So much wanted, and this is the level I needed to have to be able to make it. And then a week later, that's week 4 or 5, I think, my weather router calls me and says, okay, you got a hurricane. Her name is Estelle. Hurricane Estelle is coming your way. So next week you're going to have 35 knots of wind. So okay, I'll deal with it when it comes. It's as big as, the one that made me fail the first time, but at least I've got 4 weeks in my boat. I know my boat. I'll be okay. I changed my sea anchor system. And fortunately, it was downgraded to a tropical storm, so I only had to be stuck in my cabin for a day. And after that, it was like, okay, let's go. And then it's kind of a groundhog day. Every day is the same, and all you have to do is keep positive. I refuse to have any negativity in the boat. Like, every time I had a negative thought or too much emotional, I would cry every day thinking of my friends, my parents. Okay, stop, snap out of it. Think about it, just go. It's very mental, so every time you pass a new threshold, it's like a celebration. 1,000 miles or 39 days. Tomorrow is going to be the longest time I've ever been in the ocean, because my first crossing was 39 days. But it was hard, and the times when it was really, really tough, like this time I had a compartment that got filled up with water, and it was dropping in. So at 2 o'clock in the morning, I wake up, there's water, and like my sleeping bag is completely wet. I don't understand, so I have to fix this. I fix it over time, but I always remember my uncle said, Cyril, it's going to be hard. It's going to be so hard, but remember that you decided to do that. There's people that are fighting fights that didn't decide to do, like sickness or somebody dying around them, so you can't complain. And that was what I wanted to say. I'm going to do it. I decided to be in this. I'm going to go through this. I don't care about what the rest of the trip is going to be. Well, throwables, curveballs are coming. Day 46, my water maker breaks, so then I have to add this. This is a handheld water maker, so for 2 hours, added to the 12 hours of paddling I have to do and make my gallon of water every day. But then I reach halfway point, day 50, and I thought I was going to reach that at day 35. So I'm slower. That means I need to start a ration. I need to make different choices. So instead of going to Honolulu, I'm going to go to Hilo because it's 100 nautical miles shorter. I'm going to shave 5 days of my trip. But it was so hard, because how do you cross an ocean? It's like eating an elephant. How do you eat an elephant? It's like one bite at a time. And there, I had eaten half the elephant, and I couldn't anymore. My first crossing, it was great. We reached halfway point. Okay, each day is going to be 1 day less. The barn is over there, let's go. No, this was like so hard mentally. And the only way I could do it is actually by reframing my mind. It's, again, a mental trick where instead of saying, it took me a few days to come up for that, but instead of saying, I'm crossing to get to Hawaii, so the goal is far away. It's another 50 days. It feels hard. But the goal is actually, I'm going to cross to enjoy the journey to get to Hawaii. So my goal is now. The journey is now. My goal is to enjoy the journey, so I'm going to enjoy the day-to-day. The future doesn't matter. It's not there. The past doesn't matter. It's past. It's just now. So then I got into like complete meditation, spiritual trip where I was connected so much with nature. Like the birds were coming to see me, and just the flying fish that were coming out of. Like, I'm so slow. I could see literally them take off right there. They were not afraid, like a sailboat. And the connection that I get with nature is just fantastic. In the ocean, going so slow. And there it's about maybe 70 days. I should have gotten to Hawaii already in my mind, but no, there's going to be another 3 weeks. Try to enjoy the moment. And then I understand my why. The ocean is actually telling me the reason why I want to do this. I think the reason is, when I read that book of Ed Gillette, it was a theory of traveling with him. But I guess my personality is I want to feel what it is. I wanted to feel what it is to be waking up to a sunrise 360 degrees alone. I wanted to see what it is to see the stars at night, or feel what it is actually to push the pier and say goodbye to a loved one with a risk trip ahead. Or I wanted to feel what it is to push yourself to get to victory and own that victory, because I'm the one doing it. So I wanted to embrace life and feel alive. But it's always hard. I mean, there's still 3 weeks to go. So there I hang on to discipline. Discipline was what Erden, my friend, told me. He said, Cyril, you got to watch that Erden is a friend who did so much rowing. And he said, you got to watch for your discipline, because the moment you start to slack is the moment it could go wrong. So if you stop brushing your teeth, if you stop taking the baby wipes and removing your salt from your body, that's when you can start to have lesions. And that's what you need to watch, because from that moment on, you're not in control. You need to stay in control. So this is a picture I took about 70 miles before I arrived to Hawaii. That's the same distance that when I was rescued off of Santa Cruz. And that was such a different taste. It was a taste of already almost making it, but I knew I didn't want to give myself the satisfaction of feeling that I had done it. Because it only takes me going out of the kayak too fast, twisting my ankle, and I would have to be rescued, just like Scott Donaldson had to be rescued on his second trial. But then I'm in tune. I'm in tune with the environment, with the ocean. I feel what's happening on the swell before I actually understand. I know the rhythm of the wind picking up in the morning and coming back down at lunch, and then the influence of the sun and the weather on the wind. And I feel connected with the wildlife. I feel connected with the tuna and the mahi-mahi that follow me, and the frigate birds that I see. I feel so connected with my boat. Every sound that I hear, I know what it is. I know where everything needs to be fixed. I'm one with my boat. And then I see land. You saw me, the joy that I had. And that thing, I said, like, I knew it. Because it was about about the vision of trying to do this, and the task at hand. It would be so monumental that I had to elevate my game. It took me 4 years to be able to do that. But then I knew it. And then that's when I realized, okay, I made it. Like, nothing's stopping me. If I have to go and swim for one day, I'll get to Hawaii. And I finally made it. And I was so thankful for all the people on my team, really, that followed me and that said, you know, there's the people that will support you. I think it's a great idea, do it. And then there's the people that say, I don't think it's a great idea, but I support you nonetheless. Or there are people that say, it's a really bad idea, but I support you nonetheless. And then I guess this is what it is. You know, I felt so alive. That's what I wanted. I wanted to feel this intensity of emotions that is quite unreal and hard to explain. But finally, you know, when I get home, the loved one, my parents had flown from France, many friends from California, and it was just all the simple pleasures took so much more value, because I didn't have a shower. So just going to the hotel and turn on the hot, oh my God, this is paradise. But simple things like hugging a kid, or seeing a bird fly, or like butterfly, or a smell, or a cold beer, anything like that was so taken for granted would just like be so much more intense. So what did I learn? I learned so much. It took me 90 days. But my friend Steve, you know, it was 8 months ago, so it still is recent. My friend Steve in Canada said, Cyril, look, it was 90 days. It was so hard. It felt forever. When you did it, it felt forever. But in the end, you're 45 years old. 3 months is nothing to scale your life. But those 3 months are going to define the way you see and you live life for the next 45 years of your life. So it's probably the best investment you've done. So now, I'm so happy to talk about it. I talk about how I had a dream, how I chased it, how I suffered for it, and how I finally made it happen. So this is what I wish you guys. Go for your dreams. Thank you. In Hilo. Yes. The first island is the big island, so I was on there. Should I join you?
I'm so sorry for all that noise. There we go. The mic didn't want to follow me. Cyril, that was wonderful. You are a big dreamer. It's something that would not have occurred to many of us to do, and you picked something that you were the one.
You can't fake it. You have to believe it, and you have to be 100% committed. You can't do it halfway, like
Exactly.
I explained. But what's hard is we usually look at a project as being linear, where first you have step 1 and then you step 2 and step 3. But in a project that hasn't done before, it's more of like a puzzle, where you see a piece and then you take another piece and another piece, and then you invite somebody to give you a piece, and then the picture starts to have a shape.
And it never really stops. You have to constantly reinvent and rethink.
Yes, and then your problem with a sea anchor, how do I reinvent that? I'd taken something that I knew worked on the rowing boats and doesn't work on a kayak.
Right.
My kayak is so different. It tracks really well. It's got a good speed, but it behaves differently than a rowing boat.
Speaking of rowing boats, I understand that you are a record holder for your rowing prowess.
Yeah, so I got the Guinness. I actually don't really care too much about this. It's the cherry on the cake.
Yeah.
I went for the adventure, and I thought, okay, if I go once in my life.
What did you do exactly?
Oh, so we left from Monterey to Hawaii, and we arrived in Honolulu in 39 days on a 4-man rowing boat. There was Fian from Iceland, Thiago from Brazil, Carlo from here, San Jose, and I was the French guy. So it was a very international crew, and we left one morning in June, and we arrived 39 days later.
You know, it's funny. 39 days, 90 days plus 9 hours. Think about these trips to the islands, as my grandparents used to call it. They went on the Lurleen. I don't know how long that took, but I'm sure it wasn't 90 days. But, you know, you texted me from Hawaii yesterday.
Yes.
And you were about to get on the plane. What, 5.5 hours?
Yes. So, I think that's one of the reasons of the why. I mean, it doesn't make sense. I could fly there in 5 hours. And I think it's one of the characteristics of the human spirit. You want to do it not for just the crossing and getting there. It's for what you learn through the experience and have the hardship, embrace the hardship, and then how you learn about yourself through that. It's not for everybody. Not everyone likes that. I think I was looking for something. I didn't know what at the time, but I think the ocean gave me a lot of answers.
Well, you said hardship. You told me, do you like cold water?
You see on the video I swim once because I had to scrape the barnacles. They're growing so fast. Well, I didn't like it too much. It was warm, but when you think about all the fish and then the sharks and stuff in there, I was like, well, no, I don't want to.
No.
So
stay in that little cocoon. Yeah. So it's interesting when you talk about how it's really a lot about the journey as much as the destination. Obviously, it's more about the journey and all your preparation. So you were born in France. You've lived in how many countries?
Oh, many. In the U.S., I lived in Brazil for 6 months, in Argentina for 2 years, in Italy for 2 years, in Oxford, England for a year, in Spain for a year. And then I ended up here in this country, and I loved it. So now I'm American as well, but I think I felt a connection, especially with California, of like that energy. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's kind of funny. I said to people that as an immigrant, I believe more in the American dreams than the Americans themselves.
Really?
Because there's this energy. Like, you want to do this? Do it. Go. Like, go for it. Like, you know, even in Europe or in France, where you have the same economic level, there's not that strength of energy.
Huh.
That is where it's more like, okay, you have to go climb the hierarchy one by one. And I wanted to work in the wine business, and they said, okay, well, are your parents winemakers, or what's their generation? I came here. I wanted to work in the wine business. Sure, do it. You know, you're French. You must know.
So that's what drew you to California, was the wineries.
Yeah, it was winemaking. I worked for 12 years in the wine business. But I had never kayaked before, and this is the power. Like 32 years old, 10 years later, I was planning that trip. this is quite crazy.
It is crazy. So
Yeah.
a lot of people, when we talk to the great yachtsmen of the world, they remember they're practically
Right.
born on a boat, right? And their first memories were of being on the boat. And were you like that?
No, I was windsurfing a bit, but not very well. I was a soccer player all my life. But it's a beginner's mind. Like, I'm happy. Here's what I say all the time is it's all about the vibration. People are looking for happiness on the wrong place. What's happiness? Is it having a bigger career or another car or bigger house, another kid or whatever? I think for me it's all about vibration. When you feel you do something that you love, like you feel great. It could be having friends at a table. It could be going to the baseball game. It could be anything you want, like throwing the ball with your kids. If you feel that I love this, do more of this and more. And I started kayaking. I had so much pleasure going under the Golden Gate to Ponte Bonita with friends. And hey, there's a race, and we're gonna cross from Catalina to Newport Beach. You want to do it? Sure, let's do it.
That's exciting.
And it's vibration. It's
Yeah.
little by little.
Was your family like that? Were your mother and father supportive? My son
Oh,
went
my
to
mom was
Oxford.
so-
He has this business
Yeah.
degree.
My mom was so scared she didn't sleep for 90 days. She was so happy to see me arriving in Hawaii. And now I tell her that I want to do it again. I'd love to do the Atlantic next year. Yeah, she's not very happy about this. But like I said at the end, there's those people that care for you, but they still think that it's your true nature to do it.
Yes.
My fiancée now, her biggest gift is actually to let me be who I want to be.
That's important.
Right. And I heard this metaphor. It was actually great the other day. If you look at an algae in the water, it's beautiful. It's like flowing, right? It's in its right environment. You take the algae out of the water, you put it in the sand. So sad. Start to rot. It stinks.
Yeah.
So you got to find the environment that makes you be beautiful. And then she allows me to be in there. She's not a weather person, but that's how I feel alive. I need to do this.
Yeah. But she appreciates that in you.
Oh, she hates it that I go like.
Of course she does.
I mean, seeing me alive is what she wants, right? So that's beautiful.
And were you a wild child?
No, not really. I was a good kid.
What happened?
Well, no, I was lucky to be raised in a family with really deep roots. There were 5 kids in the family, and my dad is a cardiologist. My mom is a mother at home, and very stable family, and that gave me the strength to know that I could always do anything because I could fall back. I was lucky. I think family is so crucial.
Indeed.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the basis of it all. So you're thinking about new adventures.
Yes.
What could they possibly be?
So the first thing is I didn't want to rebound. I knew that there's a post-expedition syndrome where you come back and you feel lost. And the one thing is you rebound and you want to do another one right away. I wanted to give myself the time to get the learnings. So I didn't decide anything. It took me a few months, but I feel like now I've got a shot. There's no kayaker that has done 2 different oceans on a kayak. So my next goal is going to do the Atlantic, east to west, from the Canary Islands to the Caribbeans. So I'd like to do that. It's going to be December next year. In the meantime, I got a new steady job so I can pay for my expenses, but I'm working on a book, I'm working on a documentary, on a TED Talk.
Oh, wonderful.
So, yeah, I'm doing speech engagement. I was in Hawaii for that, for a big company that wanted to hear my story. And the energy, and I'm loving it. So.
What is your new job?
So now I'm a manager of the Club Nautique right here because I'm interested in sailing. It could be the next thing. So I'm do all the classes. I'll do.
So you're teaching people how to sail?
Well, no, I'm running the business,
Of
but
course.
then I'll do everything and I'll go out. Tonight we're going on hump night, so I'll be there sailing tonight.
Ooh,
Yeah,
fun.
fun. Yes.
So we have a question for you from
Yes.
the back.
First of all, thank you. Very inspiring story and a lot to take away. I'm interested in hearing about what was the physical toll on your body when you got to Hawaii. Were you able to stand on your own? Were you able to walk?
Yeah, I'd not walked for 3 months, so I lost 20 pounds, a lot of muscles on the legs and the butt. So just standing, my own weight on the hips and the knees were hurting, but I actually didn't run at all. I knew I could get hurt, so I did a lot of yoga, and the muscle fibers were still here, so I just ate properly. I did gradually more workout, and I got the strength back. But the first days, you have the sea legs, so everything's moving for a few hours, a couple hours.
Yeah, I know how I feel after 2 or 3 hours on a boat. I can't imagine what it'd be like getting back online after 91
Yeah.
days. So.
But I had added a pedaling system. Ed Gillette, who crossed when I read the book, he arrived, his legs were completely atrophied. And I thought it would increase my chance of success to have a pedaling system. So at least for 2 hours a day, I would pedal and use my legs and kind of do that. So I think that was part of the success. I also wanted to have a backup in case the rotation of the core when you kayak, anything can go wrong. You use your shoulder, the elbow, and then the wrist, and the core. Like, I didn't want to have to quit if anything would happen, a tendonitis or something. So I wanted to have that as an alternative. It was good.
So the pedaling actually propelled the boat as well.
Yes.
That's terrific.
Yeah. It's the two flippers that go right and left.
That's so
Thank
smart.
you.
And that's like part of your redundancy. You kept building in the Department of Redundancy department. Clearly,
Yes.
You have multiple backups, which was brilliant and necessary.
So there was, again, those naysayers that say, it's not a kayak, it's a pedal boat. I don't care. It's me going out there. I think it's a good decision to do it, so I would decide it. But, there's so many thoughts that I had when I decided to put this. And one was, okay, I'm going to eat for an hour in the morning, an hour at lunch, an hour at dinner. That's 3 hours the boat is not moving because I'm holding things in my hand. What if in the meantime I have a pedaling system that lets me go 2 miles an hour?
Yeah.
That's 3 hours at 2 miles an hour. That's 6 miles.
That's 6
that
miles.
I could add.
That could keep you from
6
drifting.
miles for 70 days.
Yeah.
It's 420 miles. That's 1/5 of the trajectory just because I'm pedaling while I'm eating.
Yeah.
Makes sense. I'm going to do it.
Totally. And it gives your arms a break.
And it's still human powered. I want it to be fully human powered, so I felt like it was good.
No, that's a good strategy. So your navigation system, you mentioned a Garmin. That's the kind of thing you might see in people's cars.
Yeah,
right?
no,
That's what you use?
Yeah, well, so I had a BNG plotter,
Uh-huh.
and the weather router was actually calculating the next drift for the 3 days. So it would give me
I
a
see.
waypoint,
Oh,
and then I just put it in. But then the backup were handheld, and Garmin makes really good handheld GPSs, so I had 2 of those.
And you had no sextant or anything?
No. Well, now I'm going to do a navigation at sea, and I learn coastal navigation and celestial navigation.
Oh, cool.
So, yeah, I'll keep learning.
Good. So we have another question?
Yes.
Oh, Chris.
Cyril, as a mother, my heart hasn't stopped racing. Truly, I wouldn't have slept either. You kayak, or you rode with 3 other guys.
Yep.
What was the relationship in deciding to do that and preparing to do that to your single man kayak and
Right. There's many great questions.
What was the
I've always done expeditions with other people. I'm very enthusiastic, and I love people, and that's how I get charged. I'm an extrovert. So it was natural to go and do it with them. But then I think the idea of trying to find what would it be to be alone, and that, pushing my own boundaries, or not pushing, but like exploring my own boundaries, how would I do if I were on my own? So that was part of the things I wanted to know. And in fact, here's how I explain it. I discovered night because, let's say nowadays, you wake up during the day and you go sleep at night. And during the night, nobody goes walking at night, right? And that's what it was in my life. I was always with other people. And there was the night part, which is being alone, that I didn't know. And I actually discovered it because I was alone for 90 days. And now I love it. So there's this whole other part of me that I didn't know. That is, actually, I feel great. So now I go on the bay, just on my own in the ocean. Mm-hmm.
Well, it makes me think, when you said you were, within 400 miles of a shore, you'd wake up every hour and make sure there's no one nearby. Did you continue that pattern of disrupted sleep all the way for 90 days plus 9 hours?
Yeah, so in the middle there's less container ship, so I could sleep for 2 or 3 hours at a time.
Yeah.
But you're always, pending to see a container ship. Then when you see one that goes quite close, like 4 to 5 miles, you're actually happy to talk to them on the VHF. It's not sure that you understand what they're saying. Either they're super British and their English is hard to understand on the radio, or they're from Southeast Asia or something. But just to have a talk with a human being is just fantastic.
Well, I must have been shocked to discover you out there in the middle of the Pacific.
But after when I came back to land, my sleep pattern was interesting. I would sleep 8 hours, but I would never go deep sleep.
No REM
It was very
sleep?
shallow. No, not for a month or 2. It was very shallow, and I could track it with my devices.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess my body was just so accustomed to being aware at all times.
But that's part of your brain function, is getting that REM
Yep.
sleep is critical.
Yeah, well, I dreamed like crazy, but it was like short, not
Oh.
on land that
Right.
much. Yeah.
Interesting. Well, so once you do your Atlantic crossing, I'm just thinking, where from there?
So-
are there more records?
No, it's one at a time. I
Yeah.
think first I need to refurbish my boat, so it's a process.
It'll be the same boat.
Same boat.
Valentine.
Yes. Valentine.
I
Yes.
love it.
her. I know her so well. It's been 90 days on her, and I thought I could sell it, but I'm not ready to sell it. And I don't want to go with another boat, maybe even more technological. I just like that one. So I need to refurbish it. I need to have some money to be able to ship the boat to Canary Islands. And once I get to Guadeloupe, I have to bring it back. And then if I take 3 months, I have to pay my expense. So I'm looking for sponsors right now.
Sure.
And then once this goes well, then maybe I'll, again, take a few months to step back. And maybe if the ocean is calling me, maybe I'll do the Tasman Sea. Maybe I'll do something else.
Are you going to make changes to her? Are there things, renovations,
Yes,
retrofits
so-
you're going to make?
Right now I've got an Iridium Go that allows me to send low-def pictures. And what it is it's great, but nowadays people want to see like even more connectivity. What I saw is that so many people followed my journey. They were not kayakers, they were not ultra-endurance racers, but just for the adventure. And in a way, I'm selling dream.
Yes.
And, in life where there's hardship, there was COVID, and if not COVID, there's something else. I'm selling dream, and that's what I do. So having the ability to have a better internet connection on board, to be able to send videos of 1 minute could be great. So I'd like to have that. I'd like to have a dagger board that is also weighted, so I can have a bit more stability. And I don't want to have a keel or anything, but I want to change my routing system. I want to change a few things. She's perfect as is. But
Of course she's perfect, but just a little different. It's interesting. Well, she's a beautiful boat. I'm happy that you were able to have this gorgeous boat for you. So when you were out in the middle of the ocean, when you thought about food, what were you fantasizing about? What were you thinking? I'm eating freeze-dried food. This is
So it's a common question, but I actually didn't fantasize so much. I knew what I was getting into.
Yeah.
I knew I was going to sleep on a dump sleeping bag or not having. I actually didn't eat hot at all. I had a little stove, but I was so afraid to get spilled and get burnt that I didn't use it at all. So I ate cold and freeze-dried meal. And I know I'm not going there for comfort. I'm going there for other things.
for your
Right?
dream.
So I didn't. If it's the idea of a tiramisu like today, we came back. Oh, yeah, that'd be nice, but I don't let it influence me at all.
If you play your cards right, we might have a little bit more for you.
Oh yeah, I'm going for the number 2.
Absolutely. Well, it's really exciting to hear you talk about your big dreams. So do people seek you out for their advice? Because you're mentally just so focused. Your discipline is extraordinary, and yet you have this ability just to dream. I think, you want to try this one? There you go.
So part of now my job I love to do is actually to be a motivational speaker. So I go to companies and I talk to companies. I want to feel that energy because so many people they want to do something. They want to do a triathlon. They want to live overseas. They want to learn language, but they don't know where to start. They don't know to make room in their life for everything. So in some ways I do it naturally because I want to do it so much that I take, you don't call it sacrifice if you love it. Like I wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, create a spreadsheet and put my ideas down. And that's what now when I learn languages, I love to learn Norwegian and Hawaiian and Japanese. I just do it. And people have it, but they just don't realize it. So I can do that when I go talk in companies and conferences, and I'm happy to share the passion. Yeah.
Well, I'm thrilled that you were able to share your passion with us today. When does Guinness decide about that second world record?
Well,
it's pending, right?
Yeah, it's pending. It
How
takes
could
a
you
year.
not get it? What does it take? What do they look for?
Well, I
mean,
gave
it's
my
obvious.
GPX track, so there's a starting date, time, and a finishing time, and they saw the track. So no, it's official. It's just that it takes time, and then in a year I'll be printing the book, so it's gonna be fun to be next to the woman with the longest nails.
Oh, what a sight. We all have our challenges, don't we?
Yeah.
And our
Well,
strengths.
listen, I gave the first Guinness World Record to my kids. And I showed them, look, it's me, it's my name. And they actually didn't care too much. They looked at the guy who could smash the most pumpkin and with his head in 1 minute or something.
You're funny. Well, there's a motivational thought. Well, listen, Cyril, this has been an absolute delight to meet you and to hear your story. And
Thank you.
I hope we get to hear more from you soon.
I hope so.
Looking forward to your TED Talk, your book, and your movie.
Yes.
How about that? This guy's got a full
Let's
plate.
do it.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And
Thank you.
again. We're live in the grill room at the St. Francis Yacht Club. And I'm going to ring the bell. And this is the end of today's Wednesday Yachting Luncheon.
From the St. Francis Yacht Club in San Francisco, this is the Wednesday Yachting Luncheon. Hosted by Ron Young.